Good morning, ladies. I got the slick down bun today. I'm feeling cute, I'm feeling grown, feeling professional. Okay, so let's get back into the mini series 10 Signs You Don't Know Yourself. First, I am Shalise, and I'm a life coach for introverts, and I help introverts find their identities so that they can walk in their purpose. Okay, so let's get into sign number 4, that you don't know yourself. You hate being alone. We're going to use a story to kind of get this message home to you, to kind of let this message register for you, right? Okay, so we have Rebecca. Rebecca always surrounds herself with a lot of people. She can be more on the outgoing side, and she just likes to be around people, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, right? However, Rebecca hates being alone to the point where she isn't very discerning and she isn't very particular about who she spends her time with. She doesn't really consider and weigh the pros and cons to being around certain people. She just wants their company, right? So Rebecca has maybe one close friend, and she has about 20 girls that she hangs out with just because. One day Rebecca meets this girl, Amy, and they meet at a coffee shop, and they just were at the register and they had the same order. So they were like, oh my god, we're gonna be besties, right? So they decide to go and hang out and go to a concert on a Saturday night. So Amy says to Rebecca, hey, you should come out with me to this concert on Saturday. It's gonna be me and a couple of my friends. So then Rebecca says, oh my god, yes, I would love to hang out. Okay, so they go and they hang out, and it turns out that Amy actually has some pretty sketchy friends. Like, her friends are doing illicit drugs at the concert, and they get really drunk and they decide they're going to drive around after the concert and go and do a bunch of other stuff, right? And Rebecca's like, I don't really want to do that. So Rebecca goes home. She doesn't go with them, right? But then the next week, Rebecca meets another girl, Tanya, and Tanya says, hey, we have a few friends, we're gonna meet up at so-and-so at this restaurant. So they do, and these girls, they're gossiping the whole time. They're talking about their other friends that aren't there, right? So that's an example of just not being very particular, not vetting people out before you just decide you're going to hang out with them before you even know anything about them. Mind you, these two girls that Rebecca hung out with, she didn't really have any real conversation to get to know them. They just bonded over the fact that they had something in common when they met, and they were able to have a good, fun conversation. So Rebecca assumed they were cool. Another thing about Rebecca is she always has to be on the phone. Rebecca can't go anytime without being on the phone. She has to be on FaceTime. She'll call people until somebody answers, and she'll just strike up a conversation and talk with them. She does it so much to the point where when she's at work, she's gotten written up a couple times because she's been caught being on her phone talking at work when she's not allowed to do that, right? Okay, so you might be saying, what's really the problem with those things? There's nothing wrong with wanting to talk to people on the phone and enjoying talking on the phone, but if you need to spend all of your free moments tied up into talking to someone else, and you don't want to give yourself time to think and to be with yourself, then that's a sign that you may fear being alone, right? If you will accept friendship from every person who offers it, just because, and right away, fast friends type of dynamics, just because you had a first good impression or encounter with them, and you are not willing to discern, you're not willing to get to know them, and you continue to hang out with them after you see a humongous red flag, then sometimes that can be a sign that you are afraid of being alone. And you also may be one of those people who will accept every invitation somebody gives you to hang out, because you like the idea of somebody desiring you, right? You like the idea of being accepted so much that you don't actually have any principles in place to determine whether this is somebody good that you should be around. And when people don't like to be alone, it's a sign that you just don't like to, you're uncomfortable with being alone with your thoughts. Maybe you have some unresolved trauma or issue. Maybe you just don't set enough time aside to be with yourself. You don't journal, you don't do any of that. And so you don't like being by yourself, because then you have to think about your life, where you're going, where you're headed, what you've done, maybe some things in your past that you're not proud of and you haven't resolved it. And so you don't like that. So you got creative with being able to fill up your time so that you don't have time to think about yourself. This can even be present in people who like to overwork. Like they like to be working all the time so that they don't have to think about anything. They don't have to think about where their life is headed or what they've experienced and how it's affected them. It's just a means of escape. And so you may even find yourself staying in a relationship too long because you don't want to be by yourself. You hear people say, oh, I don't want to start over. And it's like, so you know this is bad for you. You rather stay in it than start over. Because another part of starting over is having to be alone for a minute. There's people who, there's a lot of people though, that while they're in one relationship, they're looking for their next one, right? But that's the point. That also shows you don't want to be alone. Because if you truly were comfortable with that, you would leave the relationship, as hard as it may be. You would weigh the pros and cons of staying and leaving. You would decide it's best that you leave and deal with what happened, process it, heal, and move on. Being afraid to be alone is actually one of the key signs that you do not know yourself, that you do not have a strong connection with yourself, because you have to have time to think and process things. When you have experiences in life, they are always meant to teach you something. And so if you're not spending the time to process and to think about it, you're missing the lesson, and therefore you will repeat this again. It's important to be able to sit with yourself, be able to sit with your emotions, be able to go through your life and have some time to where you are actually evaluating your life, where it is, where it was, and where it's going. Being afraid of that is normal to maybe be afraid. It's understandable to be afraid. But if you want to get to know yourself better, if you want to form an identity, you have to spend some time alone. Every waking moment can't be filled with connecting with somebody else. All right, so come back, y'all, for part 5.